All good.
Hi everyone, this is Amanda from Astrology for Success, and I am with Larry Turnley. And Larry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Larry Turnley. Pleased to be with you, Amanda.
So I'm an astrologer. Larry is a Reiki practitioner as well as a numerologist. So is it
Yes,
numerologist? You say
correct.
numerologist or?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's
Close
right.
enough.
Because astrologer, you do hear astrologist, but I usually say astrologer. So what we're covering today is we are talking about astrology versus numerology. So is it the same? Is it different? Where the similarities actually lie? And we're going to start off with Aries and number one. So in this video, we'll cover Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. And if we have time, we might do Leo as well. And we'll do life numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I guess from an astrology point of view, everyone knows like I'm an Aries or I'm a Taurus, but as far as your life number and what your sort of main sort of number is, that will depend on you adding up all the dates in your birth date. So you might want to explain to everyone how they can do that if they don't know, so they don't know what number they are.
Yeah, so your birth date is, if you add it up single digitly, I'm the 30th of the 9th, 1959. That adds up to 36 when I add in each individual digit. It adds up to 36. And then by adding 3 plus 6, we get our life path number, which is a 36-9. I would use that terminology.
Yes. So it's like you break it down to like a double digit as such, and then it goes one. Because I think I'm a
single
37-1, I think. So
yes, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
right. So your life number.
So that's one of your main. I mean, it's your life path is one of your main numbers. It's who you are and what you're growing into.
Yes.
You mightn't necessarily have that number as a tool and talent.
Yeah, great. And that's a great reference because the same thing with astrology. So here's the similarity is like often people think, oh, like for example, I'm a Cancerian, but you're growing into that in your sun sign. Your sun sign you're always growing into.
So they're the same. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have the attributes or you've learnt all the talents of that sun sign or that pattern of that number. You know, it's what you're actually learning to use successfully for yourself.
Yes, and the thing is the same thing. It's like, like for example, in astrology, you're your moon sign from 0 to 2.5. So you're really operating from your moon. And that's why it's all, your subconscious sort of emotions and, you don't always have access and words for that sort of time because you don't really, you're not often speaking or able to sort of remember them even. So what would be the numbers that you're sort of being in when you're really young? Like what would it be?
Well, I mean, those numbers come through. I mean, the differences you're talking there is, when you come in and when you're born, your parent number, the year number is the environment you're born into.
Right.
So for me, it was you're 1968 and I'm 1959. They both add up to a 24-6.
Right. Yeah.
So
thanks for telling everyone my age, by the way.
Exactly. No secrets here on this show.
Cat's out the bag.
So you're born into that environment. So part of your imprinting that you're talking about is received from that environment. You're living in the beliefs, the culture. That your parent, all the stresses and pressures your parents might be going through, and that might come out in that pattern.
All those sort of patterns and wonderful things we learn to experience and enjoy.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
All right. So
I mean,
go ahead.
And what we're talking about, like what we're looking at is, how astrology will look at patterns and numerology is just another overlay or another viewpoint that you can use when you're reflecting on the patterns that you're using.
Yes. Yes. So if we start at the beginning, an Aries and a one are fairly similar. So what's the
Well,
journey
it's
of
not
a
so much
one?
that it's not so much that they're similar, but what I've found with numerology in relationship, Aries is the start. It's
Yes.
it's the start of the astrology sun sign. So it starts at Aries and travels through to Pisces, in that order.
Yeah.
And I found by overlaying numerology, it sort of gives another overlay to that sun sign, of what you're learning and going through. So because Aries is a one, we can line up the pattern of numerology one next to Aries.
Yes.
And what I find with doing that is there can be differences, but there can be similarities as well.
Well, the similarity I see probably more so is the house pattern because you've got 12 houses in astrology, and
Yep,
Aries is the ruler of the first house. So you might
yep,
have
yep.
Gemini as your ruler of that house, but it's a first house qualities. So it's the Aries qualities, which is all about
Yes.
you and your journey, and it's a lot more
Yeah.
about the self as such.
Yeah, correct. And from a numerology point of view, a ruling one is they're learning about their self-identity,
Yes.
their individuation,
Yeah.
and the journey they go through that. It's a practical number, so
Yes.
usually they can be good with their hands and confident practically with their hands. So their
Yeah.
confidence comes from their work
Yeah.
because that's their natural go-to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I find that's where I've always led to being a one is my work. I
Yeah.
always find that's my place where I can always come back to as such.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, where
yeah,
you've grown confident in.
yeah,
Whereas self-confidence, like when I talk about ones, I'm generally talking about all the self-esteem, self-belief,
yeah.
uh, and self-confidence and independence and that sort of thing.
Mm,
But self-confidence practically and self-confidence emotionally are two different things, and that's what comes
yeah,
out with ones. So to learn self-confidence practically is their go-to, but then underneath they're learning self-confidence emotionally. That's a whole different ball game as far as your
yes,
self-esteem. Yeah.
yes. And look, I find with Aries, the energy of Aries to me is like I always feel like Aries is like the just do it kind of Nike logo. That's how I see an Aries
Yes, yes,
because
yes, yes.
they do embody that energy of just do it. I mean, I find it's often the Aries that are pushing you to do things, and the Aries friends I know,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are going, "Why don't you just do that then?" Like they don't see. So it
And
is that energy.
it's a fire sign, so it's a
Yeah.
self-starter. When we
Yes.
look at it from a numerology point of view, a one is it's a personal number and
Yes.
also practical and personal,
Mm.
but it's the first male energy, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
So it's this getting your male energy out there and building on your male energy. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And how you use your male energy, you'll get up and go. And,
Yeah.
you know, ones can be very good self starters
Hmm.
from that point of view. They want to do what they want to do. But a lot of time their Achilles heel is they don't want to be on their own.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing with the Aries is like the opposite is Libra,
Yep.
and it's like that's more
Partnerships.
the relationship side. So that's the opposite of
Yeah.
yours, your
The
horoscope
polarity.
wheel. Yeah, that's right. And I
Yeah.
think part of the journey with Aries is learning to be bold, brave, independent, and sometimes they might find that their independence is actually being snipped at by people or relationships in particular. I see that a lot as well.
Well, I find, the big side to ones, which can come into Aries too, is they can self sacrifice,
Yes, well, that's probably
give
yeah,
their power away
yeah,
because they believe they will support people practically. They will do things
yeah,
for people. Yeah,
yeah,
that's their way of showing
yeah.
their love and support of people.
Yeah.
I'll do things for you. So, and they will extend that to the point where we'll do everything you want. I'll do everything you want to do because that's my idea of loving you. I'm going to put you first.
Right.
And that can be self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
I'll put you before me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I get that energy 100%. Being a one.
So they come full circle with that and realize that by putting someone else first doesn't actually make the relationship any better. No. It doesn't make their love for that person any better.
Yes.
And they haven't got the power to make that person's life any better.
Yeah.
By promoting their life first, or the choices they want to make first. So they come full circle with that, and learning to choose themselves over their friends or partnerships, is about, they might go through health issues because it's on that practical line. Yeah. The practical line is health and body. Yeah. So when they're self-sacrifice and they're giving away their power, they might suffer in health doing that.
Yeah.
And then have to make the journey back to well-being through choosing themselves.
Yeah. I always think with Aries as well, like they're really, being a fire sign, as we brought up, I've always find they're really good at the short distance stuff. Because in a fire sign, they're a cardinal sign, which means that they're an active sign, that they will move forward. But the difference between, say, a fire sign of a Leo, it's almost like an eternal flame. They got a bit more energy, sustainability, because it's a fixed sign. With the Aries, it's more like, maybe they're a little bit impulsive, maybe they're a little bit sort of spontaneity. Spontaneity is a big theme for them, but they might stop and start and not finish things. Would you say that's with a one? Because I find that energy definitely happens with Aries, and I even recommend them sort of doing things that are maybe shorter in space, so that they've
no, I suppose that's an astrology viewpoint. From a one viewpoint, I find that ones have this innate ability to focus and choose themselves in practically what they're doing. So they've got this real ability to zone out all the noise around them and focus in on whatever they're doing. That is a skill. So when they lock onto something, they lock onto it and they do it properly.
Yes. That's me for sure.
So they'll choose themselves when it comes to work and doing things, but then emotionally they'll self-sacrifice. That's one of the things with ones.
So that's the journey as such, and
that's right. Coming full circle and realizing that self-belief isn't outside of them. The self-confidence isn't outside of them. That self-belief has to come from within, not without. And it doesn't matter how many people say, "Oh, geez, you were good at that job, Amanda. Geez, you did a great job with this," or "You're a really good person." You could get that 1,000 times, but you're still going to doubt yourself.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
So it's about your belief in yourself and your individuation, and it's okay to be different.
Yeah.
And so the problem with ones and maybe Aries is they go into comparison too much.
Yes, right.
So they're very aware of the differences because they're into comparing themselves.
Well, and I find, themes around Aries are definitely leadership and, being the leader in that area, maybe the thought starter in that area. So, being brave, being independent and sort of going with that. So, Oh, so that covers up one and Aries and really covers up a lot of the qualities of the first house, because, the first house in astrology, as we said, is often about self. So, a lot of those things are more about the qualities in yourself that you're learning. So the second house is a Taurus house. So we're talking about Taurus now, and we're talking about number 2. So would you say Taurus and Tauruses are a little bit similar?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a number 2 perspective, we're talking about the first female number.
Yes.
Yeah. So they want
Yeah.
to cooperate. They want to have meetings. They want to share. They want to emotionally connect with people.
Yeah.
Whereas the 1 is the total opposite to that. They just want to do their own thing.
Yes.
Move forward with their own ideas. They don't want to talk to others about doing it. They just want to make that decision and go.
Yes.
Whereas I find 2s, they want to talk about that decision before they make that decision.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and with Taurus, they're ruled by Venus, so it is definitely a feminine sign. Whereas before we were talking about Aries being it is more of a masculine
Male
sign.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Taurus is certainly the words I think of when I think of Taurus is like value, because like the second house is really how I value myself.
About values.
Values.
Yeah.
So and it can be self-esteem issues, maybe good at making money, or they value themselves based on material assets. Because I do find, Tauruses tend to like, I need to see it it's like I need the bricks and mortar, or I
Personal
need
possessions.
to see it. Yeah, and they can really value themselves based on that. They can be often very good money makers for that reason, and good in that material world, in the material world we live in.
Yeah, well, being an earth sign, they're about, it comes out in possessions or personal possessions, that earthiness. They're very down to earth. They're quite solid personalities. You can rely on them. You know what I mean?
You can rely on them. Yeah.
They're there for you.
Yes.
I thought the 2 part of that, bring in the 2 to that Taurian sort of astrology, is that there's this whole emotional side to the Taurians, where they're looking for emotional one-on-one support.
Yes.
So when you overlay that, it helps you understand Taurians a little bit more, because underneath they've got this they can be very supportive, but they actually look to subcontract out emotional support. So they're looking for emotional support themselves.
Yes.
But what they actually provide is emotional support.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're looking for themselves.
Yeah. So often what you're looking for, you've got already in yourself, and you can actually.
Yeah, correct.
That's part of the great thing about the numerology and the way you explain it. Is it's really, how do you connect this back to the divine? How do you connect this back to, what you're really trying to bring out in yourself? So they may be looking for security, stability.
And a lot of the time what we're offering to people is actually what we want in return.
Yeah. Isn't that the clincher about it all?
Yeah. So we can all do that differently. So what we're talking about here with Aries and Taurus is this male and female aspect, where they're operating so differently. I want to check in with everybody before I make a decision, and Aries is going, what? That's the last thing I want to do. I just want to do what I want to do.
Yes.
So there's all these, look before you leap.
Yeah.
But he who hesitates is lost,
Yes,
So, one's spontaneous and the other one, oh no, I've got to check me facts first.
I can't go forward unless, it's all correct. And and look, Tauruses do tend to do things in their own timeline, and that is okay. That's how they do it. It's almost like the tortoise in their hair, probably. Tortoise in their hair. I got that right.
So from a 2 perspective, they're very good at playing into people. They have really great social skills and empathy skills. So, they're coming from a feeling perspective, an emotional perspective.
Yeah.
And so they're interested in the value of relationships.
Yeah.
How the quality of how they relate to people emotionally.
Yeah.
Their kindness, their support, their inclusiveness. Yeah.
Yes. Which is slightly off track, but I was going to ask with the 2, because we're seeing so many people now born in
with
the
in the year
2000s,
2000. Yeah,
is
everybody's
that
got a two.
energy different? I do see it's
Totally
different.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1990s had a 1 and a 9. Everybody had a 1 and a 9. So they
Yeah.
had a sense of self and
Yeah.
a sense of the big picture.
Yeah.
Whereas now, born into 2000, I've got a sense of my emotions.
Yes. That's going
Yeah.
to be probably a whole other video we could discuss, because I think it's really interesting to
Yeah,
deep dive into that. Yeah.
yeah. So everybody has a 2 in their grid,
Yeah.
which says I have a connection with my personal emotions.
Yes. Yes.
And I use this skill to relate to people personally and emotionally.
Yes.
I empathize with people emotionally. Yeah.
But they may be lacking the one.
Yes. Well, it depends on the rest of the numbers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, as we know, with taking a sun sign or taking just a ruling number, you're looking at a generalization where there's a lot of other factors coming into how we're learning that particular trait. You know, that's that pattern. So, you know, you just got to remember that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I always think that with like a sun sign. If you just know your sun sign, I mean, you may have sun in Taurus or sun in Aries or sun in, you know, Gemini, but you may have a lot of planets in other signs. Like, you know, you can often see that,
right.
like, whereas
That's
there is
right.
sun in Sag, but there's a lot of Capricorn in there, so there are very different type of Sag. The way I think of it is almost like having one note in a piece of music. It might be a really strong note, but it's like you need the rest to get the whole, you know, sound.
So I mean, and with any reflective tool that you're using, there's going to be some patterns you relate strongly to and other things that you don't relate as strongly to, you know, and that's just part of how we use astrology and numerology.
Yeah.
You know, we'll take certain things out of it and go, yes, I do that. I can look at that a different way now.
Yeah.
You don't, it doesn't mean that it's going to explain everything. That's impossible. That's never going to happen. But the more we can understand ourselves with all the bits and pieces, it builds a profile or a picture of how we operate. And then it helps us transcend that. From a perspective of it's not outside me, it's actually inside me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And if we're using these tools in that sort of philosophy, that I'm learning that the outside comes after the inside, well, then that changes the perspective. So then I can choose to focus on the script rather than the film.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So the same way I would sort of look at it, it's becoming, in astrology, I feel like it's becoming conscious or aware.
Yes.
Once you become aware that these are the qualities that you're doing, you may be on just autopilot doing this. Why am I always attracting this? I mean, you can be attracting something over and over, and then you've got to sort of go, well, that's me. That's on me. I'm attracting that.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, you're the common denominator, you know, and it might take us practicing a habit every day for 10 years before we become aware that we're attracting certain personalities in relationships, or we're choosing certain reactions in certain situations before we go, hang on a minute, why am I always getting angry at this? Or why am I always getting frustrated at this? Or why am I getting disappointed at a lack of emotional support? Or why am I getting disillusioned at this? And it's actually our own expectations of how others relate, or the results we're getting, or the lack of results we're getting. And we've actually got to learn to turn in and take a new perspective and say, maybe I'm feeling disempowered because of I've made certain assumptions, you know?
Yeah. So some of the recommendations then for a 2, or what you might see coming up with a 2, can you give them any tidbits of what they should do?
Yeah, look, full circles for 2 is that, being emotionally supportive people, they attract people to them because they're so emotionally supportive, you know.
Yeah.
But then we're all going to go through this emotional independence growth of learning to support ourselves emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, what twos come full circle with.
Yeah.
That emotional support isn't outside of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's within you. And that can take a long time for that to go full circle.
Absolutely. And the thing is the same with the Tauruses. Is like, I feel like if you're looking for that stability and you're looking for that sort of security or, you know, self-confidence or, you know, any of those things. And look, they're very second house qualities. I mean, you can have, like, I have a son actually in my son's a Cancer, but it's in the second house. So I really relate to these qualities. And it's really about you learning to develop those for yourself and give those to yourself. And then all of a sudden, once you start actually, you know, building on your own self-confidence, because I feel like there can be that self-confidence issue with a lot of Tauruses. They don't often show it because they can be like, you know, that duck that's gliding along, but there's a lot of pedaling going on underneath. So that, it's really about bringing that to yourself. Like, how do you bring that to yourself? And then all of a sudden, you start getting people that are more supportive because you're actually fueling that in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, twos like to be in relationships.
Yes.
So their whole experience is their experience in relationships or in partnerships. They feel much better about themselves within partnerships.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And likewise,
so, you know, and finding your emotional strength or finding your male strength or finding your female strength, they are as strong as each other. Male energy is strong as female energy.
Yeah.
And I find that male energy is I do and female energy is I am.
Yeah. Yes. And the interesting thing, what we're talking about here is everyone has that in them. Whether you are identifying as a female or male, you are, you know, some people have more of that masculine energy in them. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as we move through different experiences, you know, then the reflection back of that is, do I value myself?
Yes.
Have I trained other people to value me or disrespect me, you know?
Yes.
And
getting to the core of that, do I respect myself? Do I value myself? Because if you
you turn it in. Yes.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to train anyone if you're actually already, you know, providing that to yourself.
You're validating yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
that's correct.
We'll move on to Gemini. I think we're only probably going to get 3 covered here because in this series.
Yeah, that's all right.
But you know what? Hang in there, everyone, because we're going to have a series of this, so we will cover it. So Gemini, and
now,
the
and what we're moving on to the 3, and so the 1, 2, 3 is this completion of the personal line.
Yeah.
So with 1s, 2s, and 3s, there's always this trend of self-confidence.
Yes.
Moving through all of them. You know, I do self-confidence, I am self-confidence, and I communicate self-confidence.
Yeah.
So 3s are the communicators. They're saying, oh, you 1s and 2s are too serious. You know, we need a bit of lightening up here. We need a bit of humor. And they provide the lighter side of life. You know, they want to have some fun. They want to party. They want to enjoy themselves. So it brings in music, party, enjoyment, friends.
Yeah.
So they're really, and they're this bridge between 1 and 2.
Yes.
You know, let's lighten up and come together. You know, and just enjoy the differences. You know.
And so I find that with Gemini as well. Like, they're almost like a court jester to me. Like, I feel like they've got that, you know, that joker or court jester quality.
Oh, they've got They've got a very social side to them.
They do, yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
And their dress sense too.
You do get them sort of retreating because it's very dualistic, I find, with the Geminis as
Yes, that's
well. Like
right.
you'll find that they can
Yeah.
be extremely social and they really enjoy that, but they can have that need for like
Yeah.
reclusiveness as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because threes have got that sign. First, three is an extrovert.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Mm.
they're always fine. They're optimistic for everyone. They're up for fun. They want to have a
Yeah.
joke, you know. They're great to be around. But then they might come home and time out. Don't want to talk
Yes.
anymore. Don't want to take
Yeah.
an interest. So
Yeah.
threes are very good at taking a personal interest in your life, you know.
Yeah.
They extend friendship. You
And
know,
I
they
find that
take
with
that
Geminis.
interest.
Geminis have
Yeah,
really got
yeah.
that, like, I see that Gemini is a person at party, they can give you a lot of intense interest and really want to find out about you, but then they flit on to the next person as well. So it's almost,
Yes,
you
that's
know,
right. That's right.
they're
It's
taking in
this
that information.
extrovert skill.
Yeah.
And it's really, you know, you can come full circle with that too, where I think threes have this optimism and enthusiasm
Yeah.
for everybody outside themselves, but
Mm.
it's actually like the sad clown sometimes. They've got to find that within for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's almost
And
like
they,
Geminis as well. You can see that because they can seem really funny and fun and whatever, but
yeah,
there can be a bit of sadness in there as well. So on that
yeah,
other
yeah.
flip side of it, yeah, absolutely. But it
And
is,
threes have this whole intuitive side and creative side.
yeah,
And Geminis have got that too. They've got such a
absolutely,
creative flair.
yeah,
Threes have dress sense.
yeah.
I
I
see that
find,
in Geminis as well.
and Geminis are very quirky. They'll be, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, they can dress very differently, can't they?
yeah, they like to, they have a lot of different to the Aquariusness kind of quirkiness you might get with an Aquarius, where they're like,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
being a maybe a deliberate rebel rouser because they're trying to get that. But Geminis have sort of got this innate sort of uniqueness to them. I always
Yes,
find, and they tend to like quirky partners. I find Geminis. That's one thing I
yeah.
always notice with Geminis. They're not looking for the most attractive person. It's like they've got to have a bit of a quirk to them because it's
A
a really
standout.
mental sign. Well, it's a mental
Yeah,
sign, so they're really attracted to being ruled by Mercury. I find with Geminis, they're really attracted to the mind and that communication. They love a lot
yeah,
of banter.
yeah,
But one thing I find is Geminis tend to over communicate. So they tend to be
yeah.
over communicators and can stress if, oh, you don't get back to them straight away. And there's a bit of an
Yeah,
urgency
yeah.
there. So is that similar to
Oversharing. Yeah,
yeah, oversharing, but more over communicating. It's like they might
yeah,
bombard you with a whole lot of, you know, messages. I find this a lot where, oh, you
yeah.
know, people without dating a Gemini or something, I'll say, are they over communicating? And like, yeah, they are. And
Yeah.
it's, I don't know where that comes from, but probably a sense of security, insecurity, or that
Yep.
energy. Yeah,
Yep. I mean, when we look at Gemini, they're an air sign, and that's
yeah,
their mental capacity. So they're validating how clever they are. Well,
yeah,
threes are a little bit like that. They learn very quick. It's a fast number, you
yes,
know, and they're very spontaneous.
yeah,
And if you get someone with two or three threes in their grid, that
yeah,
means they can have scattered energy. You know, they
right.
flip from this to that to that. And Geminis have the same attributes sometimes where it's hard for them to focus on one thing. They always seem to have a couple of things going, never one.
Two things on the boiler at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Great
yeah,
multitasker. I always find their
yeah,
eyes are flitting around the room too. So you sort of might be talking to them and
yeah.
you're sort of looking at them. Is there somewhere you need to go, or
Yeah,
is there something going
yeah,
on? What's going on?
yeah.
Because you're not really focusing right now.
Because
But
they're so quick in the
yeah,
mind.
they are. They're
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
Yeah. And great
yeah,
communicators, like you said, but there may be challenges around communication, and that's what they're actually sort of journey can be around in that, you know, needing to be the communicator. Um,
yeah, yeah.
So we're going to wrap that up there because we've covered one,
Okay.
two, three,
Yep.
and we'll go into the next video. So we've covered Aries, we've covered Taurus, we've covered Gemini, and we've covered life number 1, 2, and 3. So in the
Correct.
next video by Larry and myself, you will see we'll be covering sort of 4, 5, and
4,
6. I
5,
think
and
that's how
6.
it's probably going to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a
Yeah.
series. So stay tuned. And if you want to know more about the next, because we all have these houses and we have these numbers in there. So there's something of essence people will get from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, just sharing the basics of the numbers and the basics of the sun signs.
Yes.
It's the start of sort of building a profile of some of the main attributes we might be validating through, or outsourcing, looking for validation outside of ourselves. And once we realise and we're using it to do that, we can turn it around and use those skills for ourselves on the inside. And so it doesn't matter what the characteristics are or what the tools and talents we come naturally to us. It's about us learning to utilise those tools and talents for ourselves.
Yeah. So if someone does want to get their numerology done, what's your email or what's the best way for them to contact you?
Through our Wellbeing Centre Think Focused Act. You can contact me through Think Focused Act in Melbourne, Victoria.
Yes, so there's the website. So the
website and make an appointment. Yeah.
Yeah, or you could even do offer something probably online as well if they're overseas. And
I can do Zoom. Yeah, can do Zoom.
And likewise, if someone's wanting to get their astrology chart done or wanting to get more clarification about things that are going on for them astrologically, then they can contact me at amanda@astrologyforsuccess.com.au, being in Australia. So we'll have that in the links anyway. I'll definitely have those in the description part, so you can sort of look that up.
Too good.
But we will sign out. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And we hope you enjoyed our first video. And we look forward to talking to you in the next video. So thanks a lot, Larry.
Thanks a lot, Amanda.
Okay.
Till next week.
All right.
Cheers.
Perfect.
Bye.
Okay.